Health After 50, From Biology to Biography. The Science of Turning Age from Limitation into Resource. Prologue, A Time to Gather Stones and Build Temples. Health after 50 is not a medical category or demographic indicator. It is a state of consciousness undergoing a revolutionary transformation, from fighting time to collaborating with it, from resisting change to blessing it, from existing within the confines of biological clocks to creating one's own chronotope. This is that unique period of human existence when the very matter of experience crystallizes into a form ready for eternity, and each lived year becomes not a mark on the scale of decline, but a new ring of wisdom on the cross-section of the tree of life. Imagine yourself not merely an inhabitant of a body, but the keeper of a centuries-old scriptorium, where on the parchment of your flesh are recorded the chronicles of generations, battles of immunity, triumphs of recovery, and the wisdom of adaptation. You are 50, and you finally receive the keys to this archive. Now, your task is not just to read these scrolls with trepidation, but to become their chief editor and illuminator, the one who deciphers the secret writing of genes, highlights in gold the most significant passages of experience, and writes new, conscious commentaries in the margins of the text of your life. This is a time of great migration. From the land of youth with its turbulent, unbridled rivers of hormones and bubbling volcanoes of energy, to the continent of maturity with its deep, full-flowing rivers of wisdom, stable mountain ranges of character, and fertile valleys of accumulated meaning. This is not an emigration with nostalgia for a lost homeland, but the discovery of a new world whose maps are yet to be drawn, and you are the first cartographer of this territory. On your maps will be marked not only risk zones, ravines of possible illness, but also sources of strength, springs of the body's restorative abilities, mountain passes, points of overcoming past crises, and fertile lands resources, ready to yield a harvest of new projects. Your body, this most complex biological mechanism, having undergone half a century of breaking in, now deserves not just maintenance, but transformation into a work of bioart, where functionality elegantly merges with resilience, and each system works in a harmonious ensemble, like a well-coordinated orchestra, where even the pauses between notes are filled with meaning. Part 1. The metaphysics of monitoring from reading symptoms to deciphering the body's language. The first act of this transformation is a rethinking of the very approach to self-observation. The clinical checkup ceases to be a routine collection of numbers and becomes a deep practice of self-knowledge, a modern form of augury, where, instead of the flight of birds, we read the patterns of biomarkers. Each test is not a verdict, but a verse from the poem of your metabolism. Elevated C-reactive protein is not just a marker of inflammation, it is a cry from your immune system about an unresolved internal conflict, perhaps between your lifestyle and genetic expectations. Glycated hemoglobin is not just a sugar indicator, it is a chronicle of your relationship with glucose over the past 3 months. A story of love or struggle written at the molecular level. A lipid panel is not a dry report, but a tale of the travels of fats through your bloodstream, of which have become obedient partners and which have become rebels, creating atherosclerotic revolts. This monitoring becomes a meditative practice of the highest order, a dialogue with your own biochemistry. You learn not to fear deviations, but to be curious about them. Why did this particular indicator go out of bounds? What is the body trying to communicate through this signal? Perhaps elevated liver enzymes are not a sign of disease, but evidence of the liver's heroic work detoxifying the stress you experienced the previous quarter. Or a drop in vitamin D levels is not just a deficiency, but an invitation to reconsider your relationship with the sun, with the space of the office, with the culture of covered clothing inherited from ancestors. Oncological screening takes on a particular sacredness. In the context of the new consciousness, It ceases to be a hunt for ghosts of possible diseases. It becomes a practice of deep respect for cellular order, like a forester carefully monitoring the state of the forest, noticing the first signs of disease in individual trees in time to preserve the health of the entire ecosystem. Mammography, colonoscopy, PSA test. These are not instruments of fear, but instruments of care, extending your perception to the cellular level. It is an opportunity to conduct a preventive dialogue with your own tissues, creating conditions in which the idea of chaotic division becomes biologically disadvantageous. You are no longer a passive object of examinations. You are an active participant in your own biological security, creating an internal environment hostile to chaos and favorable to harmony. But the true revolution occurs when you begin to connect the dots between these numbers and the picture of your daily life. You notice how cortisol levels drop after a week of meditation, how hemoglobin rises after introducing pomegranates and buckwheat into your diet, how joint pain recedes after a course of chondroprotectors and swimming. Monitoring becomes feedback from the universe, confirmation that your conscious actions have a direct, measurable consequence in your inner world. This turns healthcare from a duty into a fascinating experiment, where you are simultaneously the scientist, the laboratory, and the phenomenon under study. Part 2. Kinesiology of awareness. Movement as philosophy, not load. Physical activity in this new paradigm undergoes a complete metamorphosis. From a means to external goals, losing weight, toning up, conforming, it turns into a self-valuable language for communicating with your corporeality, a practice of embodied meditation. Strength training becomes not just a fight against sarcopenia, age-related muscle loss. It transforms into a ritual of asserting will over matter, a daily confirmation that you are the master of your physical space. Each squat is not just a bending of the knees. It is an act of rooting, reminding the body of its connection to the earth. Each push-up is a metaphor for overcoming life's resistances, training the ability to push away what drags you down. Working with weight is a dialogue with the law of gravity. Yes, you exist, but I have learned to use your force for my own strengthening. At the microscopic level, this process is grand. Every muscle fiber contraction sends signals to the cell nucleus, activating genes responsible for protein synthesis and mitochondrial biogenesis. You are literally making your cells function younger, sending them mechanical and biochemical signals. Renewal required. Prepare for loads. This epigenetic influence on your own DNA through action is perhaps the most powerful anti-age therapy tool available to humans. But true art manifests in mastering balance and proprioception. After 50, the ability to maintain balance ceases to be a physical skill and becomes an existential metaphor. Practices that develop this quality, whether Tai Chi with its slow, flowing movements, reminiscent of water, Slavic health practices, restoring connection to archetypal bodily patterns, or certain yoga asanas requiring pinpoint concentration train not so much the muscles as the nervous system. You learn to hear microsignals from the soles of your feet, from the vestibular apparatus, from thousands of receptors in muscles and tendons. This is acquiring an inner ear, capable of catching the slightest fluctuations, like a seismograph catching the tremors of the earth. In everyday life, this transforms into an amazing ability to maintain internal stability amidst external turbulence, not to lose your center of gravity under life's blows, to not fall, neither physically nor psychologically. Aerobic activity, running, swimming, cycling, brisk walking, also changes its essence. It becomes a practice of the world's rhythmic breathing inside you. Your heart is no longer just a pump, but a drum beating the rhythm of your existence. During prolonged, steady exertion, magic happens. Consciousness, freed from the need to control every movement, as in strength training, enters a flow state. Thoughts become ordered, emotions calm, and in this clear space, the deepest insights are often born, and complex questions are resolved. Scientifically, this is the moment when the brain is bathed in blood rich in oxygen and endorphins, neurotrophic factors that stimulate the growth of new neural connections. You're not just training your heart, you are literally growing your brain, creating the neurobiological substrate for wisdom. And here a key principle is born: movement eclecticism. You no longer need to be a devotee of one system. Your body deserves diversity like an ecosystem that remains resilient due to biodiversity. One-day strength work in the gym, filling you with a sense of power over matter. Another, a long walk in the forest bathing technique Shinrin-yoku, where you absorb phytoncides and the peace of nature. A third, pool exercises, where water relieves gravitational load and gives a feeling of weightlessness, freedom. A fourth, a yoga or stretching session, deepening contact with your own boundaries and possibilities. This diversity not only develops the body comprehensively, but also enriches the psyche, preventing the formation of a routine that kills motivation. Movement becomes a game, exploration, a celebration of mobility, what it was in childhood, before becoming overgrown with social meanings and obligations. Part 3. Nutritiology as alchemy, from feeding the body to nourishing cellular consciousness. Nutrition after 50 ceases to be a matter of satisfying hunger or following dietary fashion. It is elevated to the rank of high art alchemy, where food is transformed not into gold, but into the quality of vital force, mental clarity, and cellular longevity. Each meal becomes a conscious act of choosing the future, not an abstract one, but one that will arrive in a few hours, days, years, at the level of your mitochondria, neurons, telomeres. Protein in this new coordinate system is not just building material. It is a message you send to your tissues. The quality of this message determines the body's response. Wild cold water fish, salmon, mackerel, sardines, carry not only amino acids, but also stories of the oceans, omega-3 molecules that incorporate into brain cell membranes, making them more fluid, receptive, intelligent. You literally eat the intelligence of the sea. Eggs from free-range chickens are capsules of choline for the liver and acetylcholine for the brain, lecithin for the myelin sheaths of nerves. This is food for the speed of neural transmission. Plant proteins from lentils, chickpeas, mung beans are not just an alternative to meat. They are fibers that feed the microbiome, which in turn produces short-chain fatty acids for you, fuel for intestinal cells, and immune modulators. You are not eating legumes. You are investing in a symbiosis with trillions of bacteria that decide whether you will be inflamed or calm, full of energy or apathetic. Carbohydrates shed the stigma of figure enemies and gain the status of strategic fuel and communicators with the microbiota. Whole grains, buckwheat, quinoa, bulgur, root vegetables, sweet potato, Jerusalem artichoke, parsnip, seasonal vegetables. These are not just energy sources. They are prebiotics, fiber that becomes food for specific bacterial strains that produce serotonin. Up to 90% of this happiness hormone is produced in the gut. Choosing a vegetable salad over a bun is not a vote for weight loss, but for a specific composition of the internal ecosystem that will determine your mood tomorrow. Fruits and berries rich in polyphenols are not just dessert. They are molecules that activate longevity genes, sirtuins, trigger autophagy, the process of cleaning cellular debris, and suppress inflammation at the epigenetic level. Every handful of blueberries is a signal to your DNA. Turn on repair programs. Fats cease to frighten and begin to amaze with their complexity and significance. Avocado, nuts, extra virgin olive oil, flax, and chia seeds. These are not just calories. They are raw materials for hormone production, including sex hormones, which after 50 require special support. components for renewing cell membranes. Every cell literally renews itself from what you've eaten. Anti-inflammatory agents that quell the internal fires of chronic low-grade inflammation. The main driver of aging. The right fats are also solvents for fat-soluble vitamins A, D, E, K, without which minerals from food won't be absorbed. Bones will become brittle, and skin will become dry. Taking a spoonful of flaxseed oil is an act of caring for the flexibility of your arteries, the hydration of your brain, and the elasticity of your thoughts. A special chapter is the synergy of micronutrients. After 50, the body often loses the ability to efficiently absorb and synthesize vital substances. Vitamin D, which we get from the sun and food, is no longer just a vitamin for bones. It is a steroid hormone with receptors in every cell. It regulates hundreds of genes responsible for immune response, mood, protection from autoimmune processes. Its deficiency is not just a risk of osteoporosis. It is a disruption in the orchestration of all cellular activity. Magnesium, the anti-stress mineral, a participant in over 300 biochemical reactions, from energy production in mitochondria to muscle relaxation and calcium absorption. Calcium without vitamin K2, found in fermented foods, natto, some cheeses, risks being deposited not in bones but in blood vessels, making them stiff. Creating a personalized micronutrient protocol, preferably under the supervision of tests and a doctor, becomes a quantum leap in health quality. It is a transition from general care to precision tuning of the biochemical orchestra. Hydration takes on a sacred meaning. Water is not just a drink. It is the medium in which all reactions occur, the transport vehicle for molecules, a structuring force. With age, the sense of thirst dulls, but the need for water remains. Conscious drinking of clean, structured water, you can add lemon, mint, fruit pieces for electrolytes, becomes a ritual of washing the cells. Every sip is a renewal of internal oceans, maintaining the fluidity of blood and lymph, the elasticity of skin, and the clarity of thought. And finally, detox from toxic patterns. This is not about fasting and juices, but about liberation from eating habits that no longer serve. Excess sugar, triggering glycation, bonding of proteins, causing skin to wrinkle and vessels to harden. Trans fats from fast food, incorporating into cell membranes and making them stiff, unresponsive. Excess alcohol, giving temporary relaxation at the cost of morning anxiety and liver load. Giving them up is not a restriction, but a liberation of space, energy, and resources for real nutrition. The kind that builds, doesn't destroy, charges, doesn't rob. Part 4. Neuroplasticity and cognitive longevity. Cultivating the garden of the mind. The brain after 50 is not a static organ with fading functions, but a living, dynamic ecosystem capable of radical transformation. The concept of neuroplasticity, the brain's ability to form new neural connections throughout life, becomes the central dogma of the new reality. You're not doomed to sclerosis and slowing down. You're called to the guided evolution of your own consciousness. Learning new things ceases to be an obligation and becomes a way of pumping neural networks. When you start learning a foreign language at 50, you're doing something grand. You're forcing different brain areas, visual, auditory, motor when speaking, memory centers, to establish connections that didn't exist before. It's like laying new roads in a long inhabited but somewhat stagnant city. Every new word, every grammatical construction is a new intersection, a new street. Mastering a musical instrument is even more complex neurogymnastics. It requires coordinating fine motor skills of the fingers, hearing, visual perception of notes, emotional expression. The musician's brain is a vivid example of plasticity. Areas responsible for finger movements are significantly larger in violinists than in non-musicians. You are literally sculpting your brain like a sculptor with clay. But it's important not just to load the brain with information, but to create an enriched environment for it. This concept comes from animal experiments. Mice living in cages with toys, mazes, wheels had thicker cerebral cortexes, more neural connections, and performed better on tasks than their counterparts in boring cages. For the human brain, an enriched environment is not only study, it's traveling to new places where you need to navigate, where the palette of smells, sounds, and sights is unfamiliar. It's visiting contemporary art exhibitions that challenge stereotypical perception. It's communicating with people of different generations, cultures, professions, who force you to look at the world from a different angle. Even simply changing your commute route, exploring a new neighborhood, trying unfamiliar cuisine, all this forces the brain out of autopilot, creating new neural patterns. Social intelligence and deep connection turn out to be not just a pleasant addition, but a biological necessity for brain health. Loneliness and social isolation are recognized as risk factors, comparable to smoking and obesity. But it's not about the number of social media contacts, but the quality. Deep, trusting, meaningful relationships, where there is an opportunity to be vulnerable, to be heard, to co-create meaning. These are powerful stimulators of oxytocin production, the trust hormone, which lowers cortisol levels, the stress hormone, and reduces inflammation. Participation in interest groups, volunteering, mentorship. All this provides a sense of belonging, being needed, which directly affects the production of dopamine and serotonin, motivation, and the feeling of happiness. From a neuroscience perspective, such social practices maintain the activity of the prefrontal cortex, the center of planning, empathy, and the limbic system, emotions, preventing them from rusting from disuse. Sleep in this new paradigm is not a pause, but the most active phase of existence. At night, the brain does not rest in the usual sense. It works differently. The glymphatic system activates, flushing out toxic metabolic waste products accumulated during the day, including beta amyloid, associated with Alzheimer's disease. Memory consolidation occurs, transferring information from short-term to long-term memory, a kind of saving files to the hard drive. Active reorganization of neural connections takes place. Useful ones are strengthened, unnecessary ones disintegrate. Sleep deprivation is not just fatigue the next morning. It is the accumulation of brain garbage, memory deterioration, increased risk of neurodegeneration. Therefore, sleep hygiene, blackout curtains, cool temperature, avoiding gadgets an hour before bed. Relaxation rituals is not a luxury, but a crucial neuroprotective practice. You're literally cleaning and rebooting your main computer every night. Stress management and mindfulness practices are no longer spiritual frills, but tools with proven neurophysiological effects. Meditation, mindfulness, deep diaphragmatic breathing, progressive muscle relaxation techniques all have measurable effects on the brain. Regular meditation practice increases the thickness of the prefrontal cortex, responsible for self-control, decision-making, and reduces the size of the amygdala, the fear and anxiety center. This means you become less reactive, more aware, able to choose a response rather than being its hostage. You lower levels of chronic inflammation and improve heart rate variability, an indicator of nervous system health. In the context of being over 50, when accumulated stress can manifest as hypertension, anxiety disorders, insomnia, these practices become medicine without side effects, but changing the brain's architecture towards greater resilience and peace. Part 5. The hormonal renaissance. Not replacement, but reharmonization. Age-related changes in hormonal balance are one of the most tabooed and yet crucial topics. The approach to them requires abandoning two extremes: the panicked perception as decline and the mindless replacement as rejuvenation. We are talking about deep reharmonization, tuning the most complex endocrine orchestra to a new, no less beautiful key. For women, the menopausal transition is not the shutdown of the reproductive system, but its large-scale reprogramming. Estrogens, progesterone, testosterone. Their ratios change, but they do not disappear. Symptoms, hot flashes, night sweats, mood swings, insomnia, are not a disease, but the language in which the body announces the transition. Modern medicine offers a spectrum of solutions, from hormone replacement therapy, HRT, of the latest generation, bioidentical hormones, low doses, transdermal application minimizing risks, to non-hormonal methods, phytoestrogens, soy, flax, red clover, selective estrogen receptor modulators, peptide therapy aimed at stimulating the body's own hormone production. The key is personalization. Tests, assessment of family history, discussion with a competent gynecologist, endocrinologist about goals, not just eliminating hot flashes, but preserving bone density, libido, cognitive function, sleep quality. Allow creating an individual transition map. This is a time when a woman can reconsider her identity, freed from cyclicality, and direct the energy previously spent on reproductive processes into creativity, social projects, a new type of self-realization. For men, andropause, age-related decline in testosterone, is also not a sentence, but an occasion for fine-tuning. Symptoms: decreased energy, muscle mass, libido, motivation, worsening cognitive function are often attributed to age or stress. However, measuring levels of free and total testosterone, SHBG, sex hormone-binding globulin, can provide an objective picture. The approach should also be comprehensive. Before considering replacement therapy, it's important to optimize lifestyle strength training, which raises testosterone, adequate sleep. The peak of testosterone production is during deep sleep. Weight control, adipose tissue, aromatizes testosterone into estrogens. Sufficient intake of zinc, vitamin D, healthy fats. If lifestyle correction doesn't yield an effect, and there is a clinically significant deficiency, considering therapy under the supervision of an andrologist can restore energy, mental clarity, and quality of life. It's important to understand, this is not about returning to the level of a 20-year-old, but about maintaining an optimal, healthy level that allows you to feel vigorous, strong, and engaged. Sexuality after 50 is freed from the dictatorship of reproduction and performance. It becomes more complex, multidimensional, sensual, less dependent on pure physiology, and more connected to emotional closeness, trust, the ability to communicate about desires and boundaries. It is an opportunity to discover new forms of intimacy, where the quality of contact, the depth of experience becomes more important than technical parameters. Open dialogue with a partner, and if necessary, with a sexologist or psychotherapist, helps redefine sexuality as a source of joy and connection, not a field for anxieties and inadequacies. Part 6. Existential immunization. Meaning as the main vitamin. The deepest dimension of health after 50 is existential. This is where the foundation of psycho-emotional immunity, resilience to crises, and the ability to find joy and meaning, regardless of external circumstances, is laid. This is the age of ego integrity versus despair, according to Erikson's theory. The task is to look back on the life lived and accept it as a whole, the only possible story for you, with all its victories and defeats, luck, and mistakes. This is the practice of deep self-forgiveness and acceptance. Journaling, autobiographical writing, therapy aimed at integrating experience. All this helps to assemble disparate episodes into a single saga where you are both the hero and the author. This heals regrets of if only, grants a sense of completion and readiness for the next act. This is a time of redefining identity. Social roles, parent of active children, careerist at the peak, often recede into the background. Space arises for the question, and who am I, if not this? Answering it means discovering new facets of yourself. I am a traveler. I am a student. You can always learn something. I am a mentor, passing on experience to the young. I am a creator, a hobby growing into a pursuit. I am a contemplator, deep immersion in nature, art, spiritual practices. This is not a crisis, but liberation from narrow identifications, an expansion of self. The practice of gratitude transforms from a fashionable trend into a way of perceiving reality. Neuroscience confirms. Regularly writing down or mentally listing what you are grateful for changes brain activity, strengthening connections in the prefrontal cortex, and suppressing amygdala activity. You are literally training your brain to notice the good. In the context of age, when it's easy to focus on losses of health, loved ones, opportunities, this practice becomes a shield against depression and a source of sustainable joy. Connection with the transcendent everyone has their own. Faith, nature as a manifestation of the divine. Contemplation of the cosmos, creativity as going beyond oneself. Service to something greater. This connection gives a sense that your life is part of something grand, that death is not the end of the story, but its chapter. This reduces existential anxiety, gives strength to meet inevitable losses with dignity, and provides a resource for true fearlessness in living the remaining years. Epilogue. Chronosoma Conscious Management of Health Time. Health after 50 is a project, but not in the sense of a business plan with KPIs, but in the sense of a work of art that you create daily, with every choice, every thought, every movement. It is a synthesis of the deepest self-respect, I deserve investment in myself, and scientific meticulousness. I study and apply knowledge about my organism. It is a transition from health as the absence of disease to health as a state of flourishing physical, mental, social well-being. You are no longer a victim of genetics, age, or circumstances. You are the main factor in the equation of your longevity and quality of life. Your genes are not a sentence, but a piano. You cannot change the instrument, but you are the pianist, and your skill, what pieces and how you play them, determines the music of your life. Epigenetics, the science of how lifestyle affects gene expression, confirms. Nutrition, movement, sleep, stress management turn aging and longevity genes on and off. You are the conductor of your genetic orchestra. This journey requires courage to face the truth. Yes, the body is changing. And wisdom. Not to fight the changes, but to direct them into the channel of evolution, not involution. It requires love for this faithful companion, your body, which has carried you all these years and now deserves not exploitation until the last, but grateful care and renewal. And when you embark on this path, a miracle happens. The number in your passport loses power over you. You discover that age is not the number of years lived, but the quality of presence in each moment. That youth is not a date of birth, but the flexibility of mind, the curiosity of the heart, and the readiness to grow. That health after 50 is not a race to catch up with a fading benchmark of youth, but the creation of a new benchmark. A benchmark of mature, fulfilled, conscious, and incredibly beautiful in all its fullness and truth life. You are ready not just to age, you are ready to mature. And in this maturation lies all the beauty, all the depth, all the unique value of your unique, second, most conscious birth.